I stared at Nadine in disbelief, her words like a slap across my face. You want me to leave? This is my home too. Nadine's thin lips curled into a smirk. Was, dear, this was never truly your home. You served your purpose as a stand-in mother to my son, but now it's time for his real family to move in. My stomach churned as she callously dismissed the life I had built with Aaron. Her beady eyes bore into me, daring me to challenge her authority. But Aaron loves me. We're happy here, I protested weakly, knowing deep down that my pleas would fall on deaf ears. Nadine's shrill laughter cut through the tension. Oh, Eliza, you poor, naive girl. Aaron may have married you out of pity, but his loyalty has always been to his real family, his blood. I flinched at her words, the sting of truth laced with malice. Ever since I had been unable to conceive, Nadine had made it clear that I would never truly belong. I'm giving you 2 weeks to pack your things and find somewhere else to live, she declared, her tone brooking no argument. Meredith and Jeff will be moving in, and we can't have an outsider lingering around. Rage bubbled within me, but years of conditioning had taught me to bite my tongue. Nadine thrived on conflict, using it to justify her cruelty. You'll thank me one day, Eliza, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. It's for the best, really. Now you can start over, find a man who can give you the child you so desperately crave. I wanted to scream, to lash out at her for her callousness, but I knew it would only fuel her vindictive fire. So I swallowed my pride and nodded, my heart shattering into a million pieces. As Nadine swept out of the room, her victory assured, I sank onto the couch, the weight of her ultimatum crushing me. This was supposed to be my happily ever after, but in the blink of an eye, it had all been ripped away, leaving me adrift and utterly alone. The facade of our happy family life had been crumbling for years, but I had desperately clung to the hope that Aaron would eventually stand up to his mother. How naive I had been. You knew about this, didn't you? I demanded, confronting him after Nadine's bombshell announcement. Aaron's gaze flickered away from mine, his silence speaking volumes. Eliza, please understand. Understand what? I snapped, anger coursing through my veins. That you were going to let your own mother throw me out on the streets like some unwanted stray? He winced, but still couldn't meet my eyes. It's not like that. Meredith and Jeff need a place to stay, and with you being... He trailed off, the unspoken words hanging between us like a poisonous cloud. Unable to give you a child? I finished bitterly. Is that what this is really about, Aaron? Your mother's never accepted me because I couldn't bear your precious heir. His silence was deafening, confirming my worst fears. All those years of enduring Nadine's snide comments and disapproving glares, it had all been leading up to this moment. How could you let her do this to me? I choked out, tears stinging my eyes. After everything we've been through together, I thought our love meant more than some twisted sense of family obligation. Aaron's face crumpled with remorse, but it did little to ease the ache in my heart. I'm sorry, Eliza. I never wanted to hurt you, but my mother, she has a way of making things happen, whether I agree or not. I scoffed bitterly. So you just rolled over and let her dictate our lives? Some husband you turned out to be. His jaw tightened, a flicker of defiance sparking in his eyes. Don't act like the victim here, Eliza. You knew what you were getting into when you married into this family. The harsh words stung, but deep down, I knew he was right. Nadine had made her disdain for me clear from the start, and I had foolishly believed that love would conquer all. Well, I'm done being your mother's doormat, I declared, squaring my shoulders. If she wants me out, then so be it, but I'm not going down without a fight. Aaron's eyes widened, startled by my sudden resolve. Eliza, don't do anything rash. But I had already made up my mind. Nadine thought she could just discard me like yesterday's trash, but she had no idea what I was capable of when pushed to the edge. It was time to remind her that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The days ticked by, each one bringing Meredith and Jeff's arrival closer. Nadine was like a whirlwind, transforming our home into a shrine for her precious daughter and son-in-law. I thought we could repaint this room in a soft blue, she chatted breezily as she flipped through paint swatches. Meredith always loved that color. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to scream. This was my home, the sanctuary Aaron and I had built together, and now it was being stripped away, piece by piece. What do you think, Eliza? Nadine asked, her tone saccharine sweet. I want everything to be perfect for when they move in. The implied message was clear. I was already an outsider in my own home. A bitter taste filled my mouth as I forced a tight smile. Whatever you think is best, Nadine. Her eyes narrowed at my clipped tone, but she chose to ignore it. Of course it is. I always know what's best for my family. The jab hit its mark, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Deep down, a seed of defiance was taking root, growing stronger with each calculated slight. You know, I was thinking we could convert the guest room into a nursery, Nadine continued, oblivious to my inner turmoil. Meredith and Jeff will want to start a family of their own soon. The words were like a knife twisting in my gut. For years, I had longed for a child of my own, only to have that dream crushed time and again. And now, Nadine was dangling the possibility of grandchildren in front of me, a cruel reminder of what I could never have. That's a wonderful idea, I managed to choke out, my throat constricting with unshed tears. Nadine's smile was triumphant, reveling in my pain. I'm sure you understand, Eliza. Blood is thicker than water, after all. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I was done being the meek, submissive wife cowering under Nadine's oppressive thumb. If she wanted a war, then a war she would get. Of course, Nadine, I replied, my voice steely calm. I'll start packing my things so Meredith and Jeff have plenty of room for their new family. Her brow furrowed, sensing the shift in my demeanor, but unable to pinpoint the cause. Well, there's no need to rush. You still have a few days left. I shook my head, a cold smile playing on my lips. Oh, I insist. Wouldn't want to overstay my welcome in your family's home. Nadine opened her mouth, no doubt to deliver another cutting remark, but I had already turned on my heel, leaving her gaping in my wake. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was done playing by her rules. As I packed up my belongings, memories assaulted me from every corner. The vase Aaron had gifted me on our first anniversary, the framed photo from our honeymoon. Remnants of a life I had so foolishly believed would last forever. Nadine's vindictive behavior should have been a glaring red flag from the start, but I had been too blinded by love and the promise of finally belonging to a real family. Her subtle digs about my infertility had started small, like pebbles chipping away at my self-worth. A woman's greatest purpose is to bear children, she would say, her eyes boring into me with thinly veiled disdain. It's a shame you can't experience that joy. Each barb felt like a knife to the heart, but I had swallowed my pain, desperate to prove my worth to this woman who held the key to my happiness. As the years passed, the insults grew more overt, eroding the foundations of my marriage bit by bit. You'll never truly understand what it means to be a mother, Nadine had sneered during one particularly heated argument. You're just playing house, pretending to be part of this family. Aaron had stood by silently, his passivity a betrayal in itself. How could he not see the damage his mother was inflicting, not just on me, but on our relationship? Now, as I sifted through the remnants of our life together, the truth became painfully clear. Nadine had never accepted me, and she had slowly but surely poisoned Aaron against me, exploiting my deepest insecurity for her own twisted gain. A sudden burst of anger propelled me forward, fueling a newfound determination. I was done being the victim, the hapless pawn in Nadine's cruel game. It was time to fight back, to expose her for the manipulative tyrant she truly was. With renewed vigor, I began scouring our home, hunting for any shred of evidence that could unravel the intricate web of lies she had spun. Financial documents, personal journals, anything that could shed light on the depths of her deceit. As I uncovered more and more damning proof, a plan started to take shape in my mind. Nadine thought she could simply discard me, but she had underestimated my resilience. I would make her pay for every tear, every ounce of pain she had inflicted upon me, and this time there would be no escape. The eve of Meredith and Jeff's arrival was upon us, and the tension in the house was palpable. Nadine bustled about like a woman possessed, ensuring every last detail was perfect for her precious darlings. The good china needs to be set out, she barked at me, her eyes narrowing as I lingered in the hallway with my suitcases. And make sure the guest rooms are spotless. I won't have my grandchildren living in squalor. The words stung, but I refused to take the bait. Of course, Nadine, wouldn't want to disappoint the happy family. She opened her mouth, no doubt to deliver another scathing remark, but I cut her off. Don't worry, I'll be out of your way soon enough. Just give me a few more hours to finish packing. Nadine's lips pressed into a thin line, her disdain for me written plain across her face. See that you do. I want this place sparkling when they arrive. With a dismissive wave of her hand, she turned and swept back into the living room, leaving me seething in her wake. The audacity of that woman, acting as though she owned every inch of this house that Aaron and I had built together. A surge of determination washed over me as I lugged my suitcases into the bedroom. Nadine thought she had won, that she had successfully severed the last ties binding me to this family. But she was gravely mistaken. As I surveyed the room, my eyes fell upon the stack of damning evidence I had meticulously compiled. Financial records, personal journals, even audio recordings of Nadine's most vicious tirades. Proof of her manipulation, her greed, and her utter disregard for anyone but her precious bloodkin. A sly smile curved my lips as I began strategically placing the documents around the room, ensuring Aaron would stumble upon them in due time. He may have been blinded by his mother's lies, but the truth had a way of shattering even the thickest illusions. With each folder, each recording I artfully arranged, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. Nadine had underestimated my resolve, thinking I would slink away like a kicked dog. But she was about to learn a valuable lesson. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, I took a moment to savor the calm before the storm. Tomorrow, everything would change. Meredith and Jeff's arrival would be the catalyst, the spark that ignited the powder keg I had so carefully laid. And when the smoke cleared, Nadine's world would come crashing down around her, exposing the twisted depths of her betrayal for all to see. I would have my revenge, and she would finally reap the consequences of her actions. A twisted sense of satisfaction unfurled in my chest as I zipped up the last suitcase. Let the games begin. The arrival of Meredith and Jeff was met with fanfare befitting royalty. Nadine fussed over them like a mother hen, clucking and preening as she ushered them into their new home. "Welcome, my darlings," she cooed, enveloping them in a suffocating embrace. "Everything is just perfect for you." I watched the sickening display from the sidelines, bile rising in my throat. Nadine's blatant favoritism, her utter disregard for my presence, it was all part of her twisted game. As Meredith's eyes fell on me, a flicker of unease crossed her features. "Eliza, I didn't realize you'd still be here." Before I could respond, Nadine swooped in, her arm snaking around Meredith's waist. "Don't worry about her, dear. She's just tying up a few loose ends before she moves out." The dismissive tone, the way she spoke as if I weren't even in the room, it was the final straw. White-hot rage bubbled up inside me, and I could no longer contain the torrent of emotions I'd been bottling up for years. "Enough, Nadine," I spat, my voice trembling with barely restrained fury. "I'm done playing your sick little games." Her eyes widened in mock surprise, but I could see the glint of satisfaction lurking beneath the surface. She lived for these confrontations, thrived on the drama she so expertly orchestrated. "Why, Eliza, whatever do you mean?" she simpered, her tone dripping with false innocence. I barked out a harsh laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. "Cut the act, Nadine. We both know you've been plotting this for years, slowly chipping away at my self-worth until I had no choice but to leave." Meredith and Jeff shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between us like spectators at a tennis match. But I paid them no heed. This was between Nadine and me, and it was time to lay all the cards on the table. "You've never accepted me as part of this family," I continued, my voice rising with each accusation, "all because I couldn't give Aaron the precious grandchild you so desperately craved." Nadine's mask of indifference faltered, a flicker of rage contorting her features. "How dare you speak to me that way, you ungrateful little wretch? I gave you a home, a family, and this is how you repay me?" "A home?" I echoed incredulously. "This was never my home, Nadine. It was a gilded cage, and you were the warden, keeping me trapped in a cycle of pain and humiliation." Her eyes narrowed to slits, but I pressed on, emboldened by the taste of revenge on my tongue. "But no more. I'm done being your punching bag, your scapegoat for every twisted insecurity you harbor." With a flourish, I produced the stack of evidence I had so carefully compiled, financial records, audio recordings, all laid bare for the world to see. You thought you could control me, manipulate me into submission, I hissed, reveling in the look of dawning horror on Nadine's face. But you underestimated me, and now the truth is out. It's time to face the consequences of your actions. The aftermath of my explosive revelation was like a bomb going off in the midst of Nadine's perfectly curated world. Shrapnel scattered in all directions, tearing through the delicate facades she had so meticulously constructed. "This is preposterous," she sputtered, her face mottled with rage as she snatched the damning evidence from my hands. "Lies, all of it. Twisted fabrications meant to turn my own family against me." Meredith and Jeff stood frozen, their eyes wide as they took in the incriminating documents. Nadine's iron grip on them had always been absolute, but now the cracks in her armor were glaringly apparent. "Mom, what is all this?" Meredith whispered, her voice trembling with trepidation. "These numbers, these recordings." "Don't listen to her," Nadine snapped, rounding on her daughter with a ferocity that made us all flinch. "She's a scorned woman, lashing out like a petulant child. This is nothing but a pathetic attempt to tear this family apart." For a fleeting moment, I saw the doubt flicker across Meredith's face, the seed of uncertainty taking root. But then Nadine was upon her, wrapping her in a smothering embrace, whispering poisonous reassurances in her ear. "You know I would never betray you, my precious girl," she cooed, shooting me a venomous glare over Meredith's shoulder. "This outsider is simply jealous, unable to accept that she can never be a true part of our family." The words were like a dagger to the heart, but I refused to let her shake my resolve. "Not this time. Is that what you really believe, Aaron?" I challenged, turning to my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband. "That I would go to such lengths out of mere jealousy?" He flinched at the sound of my voice, his eyes darting between the damning evidence and his mother's pleading gaze. For years, he had been caught in the crossfire of our toxic dynamic, paralyzed by his inability to choose a side. But now, confronted with the ugly truth laid bare before him, he had no choice but to face the reality he had been so adept at ignoring. "Aaron, please," Nadine implored, her voice trembling with a desperation I had never witnessed before. "You know I only ever wanted what was best for you, for this family." But as his gaze fell upon the incriminating documents, the countless lies and manipulations she had so carefully orchestrated, something shifted in his expression. The veil of denial was finally lifting, revealing the harsh reality he had been willfully blind to for far too long. "What you wanted," he murmured, his voice laced with a pain so raw it cut me to the core, "was control. Control over me, over all of us." Nadine's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "You took advantage of my love, my loyalty," Aaron continued, each word a bullet tearing through the delusions that had bound him for so long. "And for what? Money? Power? Your twisted sense of family pride?" His eyes met mine then, and in that moment I saw the man I had fallen in love with all those years ago, strong, unwavering, and finally free from the shackles of his mother's oppression. "I'm sorry, Eliza," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything." And though the road ahead was uncertain, though the scars of Nadine's betrayal would never fully heal, I knew in that moment that I had won. Her reign of terror was over, and I was finally, blessedly, free. The weight of Nadine's toxic presence finally lifted, a suffocating shroud torn away to reveal the first glimpses of a life unencumbered by her manipulation. As I packed up the last of my belongings and prepared to leave the house that had been both a sanctuary and a prison, a sense of trepidation mingled with the overwhelming relief coursing through my veins. "Are you sure about this, Eliza?" Aaron's voice cut through the silence, laced with a sadness that tugged at my heart. "There's still time to work things out, to start over." I turned to face him, taking in the slump of his shoulders, the weariness etched into his features. For so long he had been caught in the crossfire of his mother's war against me, paralyzed by his inability to break free from her iron grip. "You know there's no going back from this," I said softly, willing him to understand. "What she did, the way she treated me, it's unforgivable." His eyes clouded with pain, but he gave a solemn nod. "I know, believe me, I know. But you have to understand, she's still my mother." The mother who systematically tore us apart, who made me feel like an outsider in my own home, I countered, my voice rising with each accusation. The one who was willing to cast me aside like garbage the moment her precious daughter needed a place to stay? Aaron flinched, the truth of my words hitting their mark. You're right, he conceded, his voice barely above a whisper. What she did was inexcusable, but that doesn't make it any easier to turn my back on her completely. A pang of sympathy pierced my heart as I watched the turmoil play out across his features. For all her faults, Nadine had still been the woman who raised him, the one constant in his life, however twisted that constant may have been. I'm not asking you to cut her off entirely, I said, my softening. Just give me the space I need to heal, to find myself again without her toxic influence looming over me. He searched my face, as if seeking reassurance that this wasn't goodbye forever. After a beat, he gave a slow nod, resignation settling over his features. I understand, he murmured, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry, for not seeing the truth sooner, for not protecting you the way I should have. I offered him a small, bittersweet smile. We were both caught in her web, Aaron, but now we have a chance to break free and build something better, even if that means going our separate ways for a while. A weight seemed to lift from his shoulders at my words, and in that moment I saw a glimmer of the man I had once loved so fiercely. The man who had been slowly suffocated by Nadine's toxic grip, but who was now fighting his way back to the surface, gasping for air. As I turned to leave, my suitcases in hand, a part of me mourned the life we had once shared, the dreams that had been so cruelly shattered, but a larger part felt a sense of liberation. A newfound strength that could only come from finally shedding the shackles of Nadine's oppression. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with obstacles and painful memories. But for the first time in far too long, I felt a glimmer of hope. A belief that I could forge my own path, unburdened by the weight of someone else's twisted expectations. And as I stepped out into the crisp morning air, the first tendrils of sunlight peeking over the horizon, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them head-on, emboldened by the knowledge that I was finally, truly free.